We will begin this evening with our open forum. Is there anyone that would like to address the board at this time? Okay, moving on to celebrating our successes. First of all, we want to introduce our students, our new students. We have Gigi Otten and Ella Zelenik. Did I say that properly? Yes. Okay, good. Well, welcome to both of you. I think we have to do a little swearing-in ceremony right now, so if you want to please come forward. Do it right here. Let's do it in front of the flag. How about that? Okay, can you hear me all right? If you will just kind of follow what I have to say here, and we'll swear you in. I, and then state your name.
I, Gigi Otten.
I, Ella Zelenik.
Affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state.
Affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and this state.
And that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of student, school board member.
And that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the students.
The duties of the office.
Duties of the office.
As student school board member.
Student school board member.
Of Independent School District 241.
Of Independent School District 241.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
Okay, you're sworn in. Congratulations. Welcome. Okay, moving on to celebrating our community successes. First, we have Freeborn-Mauer County Cooperative Services, Dr. Funk.
Dawn, why don't you come on up? We have up here today John Schroeder from the Freeborn County Freeborn-Mauer Cooperative Services. And Dawn and I were talking a little bit before the meeting, and since 2003, Freeborn-Mauer has been providing grants to local entities. And I asked Dawn, I said, I know we've had a few things over the last few years, and I asked somebody today, they said, oh, they've done so much for us, but we don't have a list of it. And so we don't have it for you tonight, but what we've done recently, most recently, we received I think it was $500 grant, and we have a nice steel picnic table here at Brookside that we purchased with it. And I know we've done iPads before for the district and some other things. And so this is just a great example of a community partner partnering with the district to provide really resources that meet the needs of our staff and students. So Dawn, I don't know if you want to say anything, but on behalf of the school district, we would like to present you with this plaque. So thank you very much. You bet.
It's very nice of you.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful program in the community. Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's actually our members of the co-op who are donating the money to the program, and then that money is donated back to the organizations. It's through an application process, and it's a volunteer board of trustees who volunteer their time, and it's been, the inception was in 2003, and we have donated over $500,000 back to the community just in that short period of time. So it's a very successful program, and just kind of an exciting part of the community. I love to be part of it. So this is very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, from Elderly Family Y, we have Dennis Deezer and John Double.
Good evening. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Dennis Deezer, and for recognition purposes today. Dennis has done a lot with our school district, a lot more than a lot of us probably realize when we don't really get to put it all together. He's been a collaborative partner in Southwest Middle School, started with our Tiger Trot and the Fountain Lake 5. That's been at least a dozen years or more going. From there, it's built into working through our Southwest activities that we have. He's an active member in getting our Builders Club started, a chess club, and a bunch of other things that kind of rotate in and out as the year goes on. is Youth in Government program with the high school. Is recognized by the high school, just an outstanding adventure for the kids that go into that. They provide after-school care for our elementary kids. They promotes youth scholarships to the Y, and I know we've also worked with them in our 7th graders for sure, and there's at least one other grade that I'm forgetting right now that also get free memberships to the Y through community sponsors. Just an outstanding community connection in working with our schools, and it's been an honor to get to work with him all these years.
Yeah, actually Friday, we were out certifying the race courses. We spent the whole day out there. I'm glad we weren't the ones having to ride the bike all day, but we got that done. I talked about youth in government. I hate to say it, but this is the 34th year, and I've run all 34 years of it. So Dr. Funk made a point to point up there as years ago. I was sitting up here where Ken was and some of you others. So great experiences. The Y is here to serve the community. We love partnering with the schools, whether it's the elementaries or anytime a need arises, make sure to get a hold of us. That's what we're there for, to serve the needs of the youth and families in our community. Thank you guys for all you do. You guys make a huge difference.
Okay, item number 6 is approval of today's agenda. Is there action you'd like to take?
Move for approval.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of approving today's agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the consent items. By the way, we have Mark Shody that is online with us. You can see his little picture up there in the corner of the television. Hi, Mark. Hi. And so this is also an action item. Sir? No, I'm waiting for a motion in a second. On the consent. Okay, is there a second? Okay, it's been a second. All those in favor of the consent items signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to reports, Dr. Funk.
A few things tonight. The first is a success story with our Well at Work clinic. So, and Lori might be able to help me. I was asking her a little bit about this, explain this a little bit better. But we've just got a report back from Health Partners that during the past school year, or fiscal year 2016-17, individuals who utilize the district at the Well at Work clinic and their lab saved $300,000 in cost avoidance. And so the way and Lori will correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm sure. But the hypothetical I've given you is this. So if somebody went to the Mayo Clinic in town here and it cost $150 for an office visit, the cost of that office visit by utilizing our plan that was charged against the plan would have been about $85. And so the cost avoidance is the difference in between going to the other clinic in town and utilizing ours. So significant impact on, the premiums when we're able to save $300,000 like that. So is that pretty accurate, Lori? Okay, good. All right, and then the other update on for effective and efficient. I'm sure you've heard in the community that we've been doing the facility survey. The city actually contacted us last week and said, hey, we want to put this on our website too. And so it's a community survey to see what people think of the facility. So we have, so far, Thought Exchange sent me an email this afternoon that we've had 320 individuals respond so far on the facility survey. I think it's closing tonight, and then they'll start to go on to the next step with the process. And we plan on presenting a report to the board in November as far as what the community input is on our district and community athletic facilities. Of note, we talk about community partnerships. One of the areas known in the state of Minnesota as having a great partnership between their school district and local businesses is the Alexandria School District. And so they have what they call an academy program in their high school, and they are known for the strong connection they've got between their local community and their school system. So individuals from Austin, Albert Lee, Owatonna, where else? Okay, so a consortium of districts from southeast Minnesota are going to be planning on heading up to Alexandria on October 26th to take a look at what's going on with the career and tech ed piece up there. So, and we like Alexandria to look at because it's a very similar size community to Albert Lee. And so I don't know if we're going to bring anybody. Did you talk to Jean Eaton at all about that? Was she able to make it or not? Okay, so we would like to see our Jean from the program she's working with to see if she could go as well. So I think, yeah, those two issues are what I have tonight. Any questions on either of those things?
I would just add, on that note also, there was an article in the Minneapolis paper today in the business section about Burnsville and what they're doing there, so might be something to look at.
I saw that as well.
Okay, moving on to reports from school board members. Angie, you sounded like you were all ready to go, so I'm going to start with you.
I don't think I have anything to report.
Mark, you're online here. Do you want to make any comments?
Nothing to report tonight, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Just a couple of things. We had our business education meeting here a week ago, and nominee, I'm going to be going on Thursday up to the state board meeting. I was nominated for the Minnesota School Board Association Insurance Trust Committee, the one that Bill Leland was on previously. So that will be on Thursday, and then just some various extracurricular activities here at the high school.
There was no Family Services Collaborative meeting this month, and Lana Howe is leaving the leadership of that for SHIP, I believe. So they're looking for a new leader.
Then I'm not sure it's fair if we ask our student school board members to make any comments, but I'll certainly open it up to you. Any comments from either one? Okay. And we don't have a teacher representative here tonight, so that concludes our reports. Moving on to curriculum and instruction, we have Southwest Middle School building update. Steve?
Good evening. So I'm here to share a little bit about our data and some of the things that we are doing to be proactive in increasing our achievement. And I think the first few slides, you've seen quite a bit in terms of our demographics. And what I was doing while I looked at this was I'd flip back and forth like this. Oops, sorry, I went too far. And watch the blue and the green. So this is our, that blue and green demographics would be our free and reduced and then also special ed. I think the one that probably changes the most, state, this is the state, and this is our site. It has us as 49.2 free and reduced. I think ours is maybe a little bit higher than that, but that's the data that's here. Some other, as we look at our scores, now one of the things I know that you've heard from quite a few of the elementaries already, and this is one data point, and it is a very important data point in terms of the state of Minnesota, but we are, it's hard to wait for this score to come. And in the summertime after the school year is done. So for us, it's a little bit of an autopsy report, even though it is important. We're excited to see the growth that we've seen in reading. So if you look on the right there, our reading scores from 16 to 17, for the first time since I've been here, this is my 5th year, we reached our building goal. So we increased our reading building-wide from 49.5% to 57.5%. So we've been working very hard over the last few years. The next area is on the left there. And you can see our bottom turquoise line and then the top state average, and we're still a little bit, obviously, not where we want to be with the math score. So we are doing some things proactively to address that issue. But we are very excited, and we've actually set our goal even higher than that 57 to push it into the 60s. So I think that's where we need to be and higher, but baby steps, and I think we're seeing the results of the things that we're doing.
Could I ask a question about that graph? So the green then for the Albert Lee School District, what is that involving, all grades then?
So this is, yeah, so would we can disaggregate it to 6th and 7th grade, but what they do is they put both of our grades together to get that number. So this is what we look like against all the other 6th and 7th graders in the state. So that top dark blue is the state average.
So that's 6th and 7th state, and the turquoise is our 6th and 7th, so the green
Is our district.
is
like
at
the
all the
district.
grades? Okay, thank you.
Yep. Am I right on that, Kathy? I think I am. Thank you. Good question. And then, yeah, I think you probably, I don't know if you see that red on the right there, that 2013, that was my first year, but they changed the reading test. So you'll see a little bit of a dip there, and then it sort of stays steady, but now we're seeing that uptick, so. And again, the free and reduced. Our focus, you know, I always kind of cringe when we separate all these groups out because our focus is all the kids. So yeah, we can say that this is where we are with those students. Those are the students maybe that need a lot more of our help on average, not always. But we're focused on growth for all of our kids. So I skipped through that pretty quickly. Okay. So just some other different looks, same data. This is the growth data though. And I know that other buildings have explained that, but I see it simply as we want to push our kids into that medium and high growth. So if you look at the right under the pie graph, where you see the number of our students and where they're located, that 40, this is in math, 40.9% of our kids in the medium growth and 27. So that's, you know, that's a positive sign for us. It didn't show itself necessarily in the overall scores that we wanted when we were still just a click below 50%. But I think this is another area that our teachers are working really hard on to make sure that those students have the things that they need to push those scores. And then the reading is the next one. And even higher. So you can see our medium and high growth is up into the 70%. So that, I think, is a huge, and it's a very positive sign for us. And that uptick on the left from 16 to 17, and our goal obviously is to have it keep going up. So.
Do we know what the state averages are on growth?
On growth, you know, that's a good question. That might be a different graph we have to print out. And again, free and reduced, you can see where the scores are, not where we want them to be, but right around 50%, and then below 50% on the math. So these are things that are always in our minds when we're planning and doing the things that I'll describe on the next page here. So some of the things that, shared some of this during the work session and at our curriculum, district curriculum, but we are spending a lion's share of our time with that guaranteed and viable curriculum. So having that, you'll see the name Nancy Remmert, and I think Mark will probably mention it also, worked a lot with our language arts teachers, 612 last year. The standards are huge. The document is unbelievable, and to understand and break it down and all be on the same page is a lot of work, and it's frankly, it helps greatly to have somebody like Nancy Remmert who just has a great depth of knowledge. So she has done a lot of work with language arts, a little bit with social studies, but we're looking to have her do a lot more, have her come in and facilitate the protocols that she has and having them look at standards. So more time for math, obviously. They've been digging in for last year and this year because we know that that's another area that we have to really work on our alignment because obviously the scores aren't where we want them to be. There also is a new special ed math curriculum that we're working on also. So some positive things going on in those core content areas. Shared with you and with the curriculum about our switch to the 7-period day, expanding our electives, expanding intervention opportunities. That I think is really been positive for student engagement and staff engagement too. Along that same line, the additional scoop of math and reading, writing for all 6th graders. So every other day, every 6th grader gets an extra scoop of math and an extra scoop of writing or reading. So that's been a positive thing.
Steve, is that more in another classroom setting, or is that like a specialized activity that's like 20 minutes long compared to this extra scoop?
Oh, no, it's a full class period.
A full
Yep.
class period, okay.
So so they have, well, we call it, right now we're calling it geometry, just because that's the part of the standards when they were looking at them that they felt that they weren't getting to like they wanted to. Whether it's called geometry in the future, I don't know, but it'll just be that extra scoop of what they need. And then that's every other day. We do have a new expanded ALC, new Tiger program, which is academic and social emotional needs for a group of about 25 of our at-risk learners. And that's a sort of a standalone program. And that has been going well this year so far. What else? Oh, and then the building-wide, just the hard work around meeting and exceeding our goal. It was exciting. One quote that was shared with me was, there was somebody here from the state talking, I think the person was talking to Kathy and said to Kathy, whatever they're doing over at Southwest, we should kind of figure that out. So we're doing something positive, and I think that it's exciting to raise that score that much.
So can you explain further when you say intervention opportunities?
Okay.
Just briefly.
Okay, yeah, briefly, sorry, I won't get too long. Girls Calls is like, shut up, Kovach. He's next, he's after me. So the intervention opportunities would be, students have access to those electives. 7th grade has a lot more options, but the idea is that those are sort of areas that we can, if we need to, pull students for extra help. We still have our Tiger Plus that I've described maybe in the past, where Tiger Plus had extra intervention time opposite of lunch. So either kids have advisory or they'll have Tiger Plus. And that Tiger Plus is true teach, reteach, pre-teach opportunity for teams. So there's that. Now, and then the whole idea of intervention, not just for kids that are low or missing stuff, it could be for extensions. So again, we're looking at all of our learners. It's, we don't want that idea of intervention just to be for the kids that are failing or not doing well. It's for all kids. So, and then again, the PLC work and the collaboration, all of the data and assessments that we're doing, that data is right now. We don't have to wait until April into August when they put the scores out on a stick at the fair. We get that data all the time in those PLC environments. So, any questions?
Could you explain the new Tiger program again? It says ALC because why?
Because, oh, sorry, what?
New Tiger program?
So we have had ALC in our building. It's been fairly small, and it's been sort of, the only time that they would meet with this teacher would be during advisory or like a study hall time. So now we have 2 teachers that are teaching math, science, social studies, and what's the one I'm missing? English, reading, English. So those 2 teachers are doing, trading off and teaching those students in that environment. What we were seeing was when students that were our ALC at-risk type of students were out in the classroom, they were in situations that just were not working for them. So they still can have out classes as long as they're where we need them to be, and then we can, we're moving toward that maybe second semester.
And what is the counseling that is available at Southwest currently?
So we have 2 social workers. One is full-time special ed. The other one is half special ed and half regular ed. So 1.5 are just can service only special ed students in terms of that social work. So we have Kim Danner also .2. So we have her every morning for a couple hours before she heads off to the high school ALC.
And a few years ago, a number of years ago, we replaced the counselor at Southwest Middle School with the assistant principal, who really is more, who can help work with kids, but can also really has a lot more of the scheduling and responsibilities, which takes a lot off of the principal's plate that way. But there did, when I came to the district, we used to have a 1.0 counselor at Southwest.
Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the high school. Mark.
Good evening. We're go through our data just as Steve did, and then open it to questions. Hopefully I can answer your questions you have for me. I've been able to watch my elementary colleagues and now my middle school colleagues, so hopefully I don't bobble this whole thing. You know what the agenda, what we're kind of covering here, those are the basic things. Here's our state data. It's not much different than the rest of the district. As you've seen, there's a state. Albert Lee is not much different. That slide there we go. You think I used to be a social studies teacher. So our free and reduce is very similar. One of the things I've mentioned before to board members is last board meeting we were talking about why the difference in free and reduce. We really pushed to have students fill this out, but it's not. Last year, Doyle, who does our food service, worked really hard to get families to fill out this form, but at the high school it can be seen, I think, as a self-esteem, kind of a negative thing to fill this out. So we try to get kids to encourage them to fill it out. So I don't think our numbers is accurate as it says for free and reduce compared to maybe our elementary colleagues. And we know our English learners are growing. It's growing. And so I'm assuming we'll be past the state very soon, especially our fastest growing population is our Corinne population. So. I shouldn't look at this screen. I'm looking at 2 screens, and that's just causing screw-ups here. This is our ACT composite scores. You'll see the last 2 years, all students have been required to take it, all juniors. Our school board has been very supportive and paid for the fees for all students. So if you're wondering what happened from 3 years ago, why we had such a dip, I would say that's part of it. We have every student taking it, so it's not just the kids that are looking at going to college, it's every student. And so I think that has some factor to it in lowering that a little bit. And I think that's why you see the state overall score going down too, is that we're all offering it. Last year was the last year that the state's paying for the full junior class to take it. And later on in the slides, I'll explain what's happening this upcoming year. But we've encouraged students to take it. Some of our students are, of course, not going to do as well because they're not on that track to go for a four-year college degree. So I think that has some impact on our scores. Yes?
Can I just ask, so it looks like in the past 2 years, when everyone has taken it, that the discrepancy or the difference has actually increased than when students had an opportunity to choose or not. Do you have any thoughts why that might be?
I don't have any data that would say why. I know I had a young lady last year that came to Albert Lee High School as her second day in the United States, basically, or in an American school, and she just looked at me like, well, what am I doing here? And so that hinders the test score, you know. Most of our students will end up taking one of 3 tests before they graduate. They'll take the ACT, they'll take the ASVAB, which is the military, or they'll take the AccuPlacer for more of the Riverland. And I think those would show more of an accurate where our students are going. Because if you're a student that's going to take the ASVAB, what's your buy-in to the ACT test? And we're also noticing an upward trend in students opting out overall testing at the high school. And we'll bring that up as we go further on the slides. 2 years ago.
Mark?
Yep,
I'm-
sorry.
Excuse me, yeah.
Yep.
Could you explain to me why it is that we are requiring all students to take the
Yep,
ACT
so-
test?
So was it 2 years ago, Dr. Funk? I think it's 2 years.
I'll address that. The legislature came out and said, you're going to you have to offer the ACT to everybody, and then you have to give it to them during a school day, during the junior year. The state legislature.
Really?
Yes,
Is it a statute?
yes, okay. So,
I assume all other schools?
yes. See, you can see, look at the test scores statewide, Neil, in the orange there.
I wasn't aware of that. So every school in the state of Minnesota
Yep.
is
Yep.
And,
required to,
Offer the test.
okay, and so,
our difference is that we pay for it.
well, they're changing the rules on it. The first year, the state paid for it, okay? What'd they do last year, Kathy?
Last year, they said if they had enough money, they would pay for it.
And so, and you had to be one of the first to sign up, okay?
Yeah.
This year, they're only paying for free and reduced students. But we still have to offer it during the school day. And we have to, we have to offer it to every junior in the junior or senior in the high school, to take it once. And so,
Why is the state doing this?
I don't know. In my conversation with, and it's interesting, 2-3 years ago, we had a committee of the House Education, one of the House Education Committees sit in this very room. And my concern is this, you know, our high school teachers, and you've heard it, Neil, the discussion, we talk standards, okay? And then the state comes in and says, well, we're gonna make all of our students take the ACT. Well, the ACT is not the same standards that the state of Minnesota has. So but where we want all our students to take this. So there's a disconnect within the legislature itself as far as what direction we want our teachers to go. And so it's just very confusing. You know, and he'll probably talk about his opt-out rate to the juniors, between his juniors and sophomores. But, you know, we had over 200 kids opt out of the MCAs because they saw no value in it whatsoever. So, but then we're going to make them all now we're going to offer the ACT to everybody when we know a lot of our kids aren't even going to go to a four-year college. So,
Well, I can guarantee you that I was one of those teachers that was violently opposed to offering yet another mandatory test that takes students away from their classes. It takes their time. It's an aggravation and annoyance for them. They don't want to take the test. I mean, those that are going to college, obviously, a wonderful deal for them. You know, they take the test anyway. But for those that are not planning on going to college and don't need to take the test, it makes absolutely no sense. And it is yet another inconvenience that is visited upon these students who probably don't need any more inconveniences in their world.
well, it's an inconvenience on the entire school.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
He has to give it
And it subtracts from our ability to offer these students something that they really might use. It's nonsense.
If you look at 2015, the total number of students taken at this prior to the requirement was 124 students. So I'm estimating we're right around 200 students that graduate, or just a little over that at Alberta High School. The next year it's 208, and then last year's 169 as students realized they could start opting out of the test.
Do students actually have the option of
Well,
not taking the ACT test?
there's a couple ways of doing it. Not showing up is one way, which we saw a large percentage or a good percentage of students. And then, yes, there's the opt-out. One of the things that you'll find is, we do testing. If you've been in the high school around the time we do testing, it takes up the whole school to do the whole testing. So our e-house, yeah, so kids will test from basically 8 in the morning to about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and we have to do it by ACT standards, so I can't just say, hey, let's take a 20-minute break. You have to do the traditional thing. So you'll see most of the kids are pretty wiped out by the time they get done. And, we try to make the setting fit ACT and all that, but it's a challenge. And I would suspect, as we see in Minnesota, more kids will look at that option of opting out of all testing, or more testing, because there's some metro schools that have less than 10% of the kids now taking the statewide test.
So we're required to offer to all juniors and seniors at least once. So that once their junior or senior year, we're required to offer the test. And so we have 2 dates, one their junior year, one their senior year, which if they want to take it, they can.
Can I ask a question on those that opt out? Are they students that have done well in schools? It's those that have been challenged, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. I would say, based on looking at the data, it's a lot of our students that the parents are following what's happening in the news, know the options, have the time to really look into it. I would say more of our students that struggle in school or lack support are taking the test for sure, because they just don't have the resources to look at that. But it's becoming a wider and wider spread of who's taking, who's not taking it.
And are you able to break out, for example, in our Pathways to Success, our ACT targets are 23 plus for college and the schools and traditional, and 28 plus for advanced placement. Are you able to break any of that information
Yeah, we
out?
could get that data to you. Yeah, we can break it down, because we receive it based on student, and then we just have to go through and try to look at that information.
I would guess, or at least I'm hoping, that the students who are college-bound aren't opting out because they're stuck taking this at some point anyway, right?
Many of the kids have already taken it. This would be their second time usually, because we do, I think it was 2 years ago, we started with John Baylor Prep, allowing students to get some extra help all students can get, and then we offer a course. This past August, Therese Netzer offered support for it. It's a prep course to help students with the ACT. And so a lot of the kids are already taking their ACT coming up. I think it's either this month, Gigi, help me out, 28th. Yeah. Yeah, so almost every month you could take the ACT if you wanted, either through Riverland, Mankato State, or maybe go to Rochester for one of the bigger high schools. So there's opportunities. So a student looking at going to college might have already taken it, and this might be their second or third attempt at it. Some of our kids, it's their first attempt. It just depends how involved they are with our counselors on planning for college and support at home.
So the students who take it ahead of time, are they not reflected in these numbers then?
Nope, they're all included. So all
Okay.
students, yeah.
These numbers are the score on that day.
So only that day, and they're not allowed to substitute a previously taken
No.
exam?
No.
So there are new rules on that, but those don't come into effect till this year. So those are just that one day and the one makeup day.
But you could provide that to us in your breakout of data?
Yeah, we could try to pull that data.
Thank
Yep.
you.
The next chart we're going to show you is our ACT placement test results, and where we compare state scores. 2 years ago, we added the macroeconomics. Prior to that, we've had all of these. The school board also supported the idea that we would support all students taking this, so students can take as many tests as they can for courses they're in, and there's no cost to the student. We're picking up that cost to support them, so it's not a, I couldn't afford to take the test versus I can afford, so we leveled the playing field there. And you'll see where our test scores are. Do we need improvement? Yes, I think we can do better. Now, some of these courses are a combination of CIS and AP. So the English Language Arts Comp, the U.S. Government, Calc, and Bio are a combination of our CIS, AP, and then our macroeconomics is our lone AP course. Our CIS is offered through Riverland Community College, so. It depends on the colleges. Usually a 3 or above some colleges will accept, and some colleges, as we found out, accept more than others. It's kind of like the CIS transfer credits. It's dependent on what the college looks at and accepts. I believe Hamlin has some of the more, I'd say, tighter acceptance rates of our schools in Minnesota on how many they'll take towards graduation. Others will take them all across the board. It's up to each institution, their governing body.
So I have some questions on this. We offer the advanced placement test to students who, for example, are in one of these classes. Are all students that take an AP class required to take?
Yes. We give this as the test for that class, yes.
So they're required to take the advanced placement. And then those scores, our scores, which include every student in the class, are compared to other schools where I would assume every student is not required
That's
to
correct.
take the test.
Yep.
Which perhaps contributes to a rather dismal appearance of our results, since I would assume in a lot of other schools where students take the test only if they want to take the test, those who anticipate doing well on the test would take it, those who anticipate not doing well would probably not take it.
And the previous school I was at, it also came down to who could afford it, because they're about $58 per test. And so my affluent students from affluent communities had no problem coming up with the $58. And there is a waiver for free and reduced students, but a lot of those students wouldn't apply for it. Once again, as we went back to the earlier slides of our free and reduced kids don't want to speak up so much. So does it skew it? Yes. I think we're giving our kids a great opportunity to find out what it's going to be like compared to other students that they're meeting up with across the country as they go to school. So, you know that if you got a 5 on your microeconomics test here, the student at the U, you're in the same ballpark. It's apples to apples.
So I'm aware of all the advantages. I'm just wondering about the wisdom of forcing a student to take the test who is probably quite convinced that they're not going to do real well on the test. And then that is going to appear on their resume, which they may not want to be included in their record. I'm also wondering, is our emphasis on AP classes subtracting from our ability to offer college in the school classes?
I don't think so.
Okay, I would hope that it doesn't, because I'm a big fan of college in the school classes, and we could get into a long discussion about the advantages and disadvantage of one of the plans over the other. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. You mentioned the ability to compare your performance with any other student in that AP class as an obvious advantage. The CIS school, route gives a student guaranteed college credit in that class because they're in a college class and it's on their transcript. So, I just want to go on record as being a big supporter of college in the schools. And AP also, I have no problem with, but I would hope that it doesn't come down to an either-or.
What do the numbers on the side mean, 1 through 5?
On the side, the student, the highest score you can get is a 5. So, and I can forward data, I forgot to bring it with. We have number of students last year that got 3s, 4s, and 5s. I mean, some of our students are superior according to AP based on they took multiple tests and they scored very well. And so I know the one the students struggle with the most of all these tests is macroeconomics, but they also score the highest in macroeconomics. So I think there's a little pressure there for them. And the teacher gives them great support, but that's the one they fear the worst and they do the best at.
About the whole free and reduced lunch thing. I guess I just don't understand, like, does the I guess you keep referring to the students don't want to be like kind of labeled as free and reduced lunch, but isn't the parents filling out the form? And isn't that the same parents that filled out the form in elementary and middle school? Like what I believe you that there's a problem, but how does that change? I understand the kids might not want to be impacted on that, but wouldn't it be the parents making that choice?
I would only be guessing, and this is just a far-fetched guess, that, you know, at the elementary, we send everything out. You know, we send out bulk packets at the beginning of the school year. I think it's probably more likely that there's things that get put in the backpack going from an elementary to home and home to the elementary with the backpack where it's easier to collect. I mean, we're not gonna go and say, hey, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this? We do a general, hey, drop it off, there's a box, it's not like flashing lights or anything, drop off forms. And we have to remind kids multiple times to get things in like internet and those permission slips. So I think it's more of a time thing, and is it necessary?
I can speak to the food service department does mail to the household. So the parents are getting it directly. You know, there certainly may be other reminders that are coming, you know, from the students to bring home. But that is a good question. You would think the parents would be equally as eager to have assistance financially in completing that free and reduced application. It's hard to know exactly why that is.
But I think Lori, historically, from what I've seen, and I'd like to hear what you got, it's high school students are significantly less in the free and reduced percentage than the rest of the school districts. And I don't know if from your other experiences you've seen that?
Yeah, I think it's a common trend that for whatever reason, the free and reduced rate percentage is often lower than the middle schools or elementaries. I think in the previous districts I've been in, that was also a common theme.
Check it out at Southland too. I mean, I would just be curious to see what they say there too. Just yeah.
I wonder if some families are a little confused how to navigate all of the benefits that free and reduced can obtain them, like athletic participation and things like that. I know one time I accompanied a student to the high school to sign up for a sport, and they were free and reduced, and the form, I think, I don't know, it was just awkward how that was handled because the student, I don't think, knew what to say, and then the staff, they didn't know who was free and reduced, which is great, but the student didn't know how to navigate that, and it was a little embarrassing then because we did have to ask the question of how to take advantage of that, and I know maybe students get the information and don't pass it along, but maybe just an easy information sheet for the families, you know, what can free and reduced benefit you, how does it work? Because I know meals are very easy because you just put in your PIN pad, nobody knows anything. And, you know, it's either that the kids aren't eating hot lunch anymore, or maybe they just don't know how to navigate how this is gonna make me look when I go to sign up for a sport and I pay a reduced fee. I don't know. Just a thought.
One thing I can just clarify is that, which we kind of touched on, that the free and reduced status is totally confidential. So only our food service director and his secretary have that information. So regarding students paying for their activity fee, it's totally in the honor system. So if they can just pay the reduced rate and there's no double checking on what their true status is. It's the honor system for that. And it's due to the confidentiality.
The other thing on the free and reduced, we just had a meeting this morning where we are going to electronically advertise what the qualifications are to be a free and reduced student for parents out there who really may not, they may get it in the mail and they may never look at it, but we're gonna try a few things through media to let people know these are the benefits that you can get from being free and reduced. So that's just consistent with where we're going right now.
And for our students that are English as a second language, we have our success coaches really reaching out to families to make sure they understand the process and assisting just to clarify so that they can get the application completed with assistance if they need it.
So back to this, Mark, I think Neil brought up a very interesting point on the percentages of kids who opt out who take AP classes. So could you go back to your Big 9 principals and in your next meeting or whatever your email is, ask them the question, what percentage is your students who are enrolled in AP exams opt out of it? Because I think that's a real key statistic.
Not that I've been excited about my data so far. My data coming up is not any more exciting. You'll see our proficiency in our 8th grade math and reading is not where it needs to be. And you'll see later on, and I'll talk about what we're going to do or what we have been doing to work on improving that. You can see there's a trend there, and it's not a good trend. We're bopping back and forth.
Mark, a quick question. Is that decline possibly a result of the fact that students are opting out of taking the test and the students
It is some of
are
that.
a little more savvy are probably the ones that would do well on the test that do opt out of it?
I don't have statistical information, but I can lean, or I hear where you're coming from, and that's a concern I have also. Last year was the first year that we really saw this big movement of opting out. You'll see our proficiency rate of our free and reduced students in 8th grade. And then I think this is the most concerning slide here that I'll present tonight is our growth. We're not seeing growth in our math. And so we have to look at not only what I'll present tonight, but what we do in the future with our math students. And we've been working really hard. Kevin Gentz, one of our math teachers, working really hard looking at what we're doing with our students and how we can help them because kids come with different abilities. And where are some of our kids in 8th grade? They're proficient where others are struggling. And so when they take the test, we already know that most likely they're not going to do very well. So reading, very similar situation. And then our growth in both 8th grade free and reduced for math and reading. Now, one of the things that Mr. Score has been talking about is the opting out. One of the things the state's putting in this year is if you don't opt out, that the test can count to cover other things in the MnSCU system later on. And so they're trying to put this carrot back there that we used to have. If you remember back for some of the school board members in the past, in order to graduate, you had to pass. There's a cut score. And so I think it was about 2013, 14, the state eliminated that. And so it's really, depending on how you look at it, it can be good or bad. So this is something that's coming out for this school year, that the MCA score can be used for their MnSCU placement. So they don't have to possibly take some remedial course. And we're going to try to get that information out to parents so that they see that there's a benefit of taking it for their students. One area that is on the pathways of success, besides the ACT scores, is our graduation trend. We're hoping, our goal is 90% of our students graduate. And as I said, we're doing some things I think will help that get there. It might take a year or two, but I think we're headed in the right direction. Thank you, Ashley. I didn't realize what I was doing here. So what has happened since the new administration has come to the high school? So Jeff Halverson, who's been a big part of helping add things and give suggestions, is here too. We added a third counselor. So my first year here, we have 3 counselors, and they work with all students A through Z. And then we also have 3 social workers that work with our students that have social work on their IEP. So I know that was a question earlier. One of the things that working with Jeff and other staff we realized is we really need to emphasize our staff where our students are. And so our second year, we brought in Jody Farr, who talked about poverty. She also talked to the community about what does poverty look like, what might you see, what might not you see, how does it affect kids, different things like that. Jeff and I, with Dr. Funk's support, added the 8th and 9th grade academy, which is based off the Northfield model. We look at students that are struggling in reading, and so we work with Southwest to gather data on them in 7th grade and pull those students together to try to provide them that extra support so that by 10th grade that they can be in a similar spot to their peers. Jeff and I also had seen a gentleman named Tom Cody who talks about top 20, how you look at things. Are you above or below the line? How do you perceive things? And both students and staff have been really receptive to it. As I mentioned, we talked about the AP test. Whoops, now I'm playing. Sorry, Ashley, I shouldn't touch. In 16-17, I made the recommendation to Dr. Funk, and he supported moving to the dean model. So at the high school right now, on the administrative side, it's Jeff Halverson as the assistant principal, and myself as a principal. And then we have Chris Dibble and Carrie McDermott as the deans. And so we're able to help more students with that model versus the 2 assistant principal model we had in the past. So Carrie and Chris really work on attendance, tardies, discipline side of things. And Jeff and I work on a lot of things, but our main focus is staff development and retention of staff. As Steve mentioned, we're aligning our standards, and you can see the 4th bullet point there, Nancy Remmert. We brought her in last year, highly recommended by a lot of school districts to look at what our curriculum is. If you look at the high school curriculum by the state of Minnesota, there's over 1,000 things you're supposed to cover, and you can't cover 1,000 things. So what are the things we guarantee every Albert Lea grad has? We introduced Tom Cody a little bit more. Staff asked for him to come back, so we did that. This year, we added a Tiger Pride course, so our 8th graders have the opportunity to take a course where it talks about some of that. What do you do when you get down, or what do you do when things aren't going well, and try to provide them some of that support. We've also worked on ACEs more this year. We brought people in to talk about that with our staff development and county partners to talk about where are some of our kids at. ACEs looking at, what adversity did they have that they bring with them to school, so we're a little more understanding of where they're at and how that affects them. And then this year we added to our academy a little bit more support. We add some special ed staff to help those students because we have not only general ed students, but students with IEPs in the academy. We also have some pullout where we have math support because math is hard to put in an academy program because you have kids at different levels. So those are some of the things we've done. A huge impact on our high school is our instructional coaches. We're really getting into having them go in and working with staff. Right now, Therese Netzer is working with staff, and we're adding a math instructional coach to help out in those 2 areas of math and reading. And then we're really focusing on trying to get out as much staff development in non-traditional format. So on Friday, I send out a staff update, and we try to have some video clips and some follow-up on different strategies that we can work with kids on. And then, of course, we're doing review of our curriculum, always looking at where things are. So working with Southwest, vertical alignment, our career and tech courses, our AP, our math sequence, which is a discussion right now, and then world languages in review this year for our Spanish and French. Questions?
One quick question and a comment. Nancy Remmert, is she a consultant, or is she
Yep,
on our
yep.
staff?
She's a consultant.
All right.
That's been used by lots of districts in Minnesota.
Sure.
And so she comes in and she basically bring your curriculum stuff with, and then she works with you on how do you get rid of 20 pages?
Yeah.
Like, what are the main things in those documents that the state provides us?
Okay, good. And then a comment. I really like the Tiger Pride and some of those other things you described, which address a more holistic approach to the students' needs. Quite frankly, stressing them mastering standards and all of is not going to be effective unless a lot of other issues are dealt with. And I'm glad to see that we're working on that, because those are some of the things that I think a lot of students really need. Geometry is fine, but if they don't get a handle on their status, they're never going to master any of those standards.
I have a couple questions. So the graduation rate, how is that figured out?
MD sends it to us, but it's based on, I believe it's an
It's the four-year rate, so I think it's when they, if a student enters Albert Lee High School, unless they've changed it, but if the student enters Albert Lee High School as a ninth grader, and then they graduate in 4 years, if they graduate from Albert Lee High School, or if they graduate somewhere else in the state of Minnesota, they are considered a graduate because they took time or spent time at Oberlin.
Okay, thank you. And then just thinking of the growth, 8th grade growth, a thought comes to mind about, just wondering what the drop-off is there from 7th grade to 8th grade. Why is there such a difference in growth? And just wondering if any of it has to do with behavioral type situations, attendance situations, are students maybe not in the classroom due to certain reasons, or because they are out of the classroom and in the office or at home? Any ideas as far as?
I don't think it's so much of them being out of the classroom. We don't have a huge issue with those type of things. I think part of it is, as we've mentioned, part of it is that social emotional part, the confidence. My friend there, Jeff Halverson, reminds kids, they'll say, I'm not good at math, and he'll always say, yet, trying to get kids to believe that they can do it, because I was working with some juniors today, and they were working on their Algebra 2, and their heads were down. They're just, I'm not good at math, and it's building that confidence that you can be good at math, and we expect that you can do this. A teacher asked me the other day about the whole concept, do we push kids to 4-year schools? Are we pushing enough? Yeah, we do, but we realize that there's some kids that's not the direction. If you look at our pathways and what our community needs are, not everyone going to a 4-year school is the answer. I have some students that, similar backgrounds. One's going to become an electrician, which I need very desperately right now, and another one's going off to a 4-year school, which I probably need desperately too. Both have a similar value. It's just what's their path for their family and themselves. So,
Grade 8 is the biggest, from a testing standpoint, is our biggest area of concern in the district. It just is. That's nothing new for Mark and his team, but when we have the considerably low growth that we do, in eighth grade, no matter what area we're assessed. I know test scores aren't everything, but we are considerably below the state. And so that is an area of concern for the high school.
Spend a lot of time talking the medium to the high, but it sure looks like it needs to go low to medium at this point in the eighth grade. Is there any different strategies? I mean, is this academy really focused more on the low to medium, or is that more of a medium to high standard area?
Well, as we target students generally are having reading difficulties, and we have kids coming in anywhere from a third grade to an eighth grade reading level in that program. So we have a teacher that does pull out to work with students on that. We also have more special ed support this year. So I would say that you'll see a move from the low to medium would be our first goal, versus moving medium to high, getting more of those kids so they're growing. And I think we'll be seeing that. I don't think we've had the academy in place for 2 years, so I don't know if statistically we can say it's made a difference. From academic-wise, I can tell you we have a lot less kids in credit recovery, and we also have kids that are in 10th grade wondering why we don't have in 10th grade, because that gives them some support there and provides confidence. So, you know, a year or two from now, I can give you some more statistics that would show, okay, here are kids, and I think you have to look at just beyond their eighth grade. I know it's a huge concern, but I also have to look at where those kids are being successful as they get into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and are they graduating? I think if you look at, you know, our eighth graders, 3 years from now will be the first kids that were in the academy. Where's their graduation rate? If we have graduation rate at 90 or above, we're probably doing something pretty good. Once again, I don't know what the buy-in is on this test, because the eighth graders get tested 3 times. They do math, reading, and science, and so I know there are students that will go through and put the letter C for everything, and so that's not a very valid test. So we're dealing with a little bit of that too. But yes, we need to make improvements, there's no question.
Just a comment, I think I like the things I see. You know, you mentioned support and confidence are very important, and I can remember, even though I'm older, I can remember 8th grade. And I think 8th and 9th grade are some of the toughest ages that you go through in your life. I always remember my sons, when they were growing, if I got them past that and they got into senior high, it was pretty easy. And I've told other parents the same thing, and it's just something that I think 8th grade is just a tough time in life, because you're not sure where you're going, and that support and confidence, I think you're providing that, so that's great to see.
Just one other thing too, Mark, you mentioned, I just picked up on it, why not 10th grade? Now, I know probably the real answer, but what could make that happen? Because it does seem to be, like you said, with credit recovery and things like that, and I know we gotta cut the strings at some point, but if it's working in that, that's gotta be a big success.
I think part of it is a scheduling issue. I mean, we don't even have to talk money-wise, but it's a scheduling issue, what kids have to be able to do to graduate. So the academy restricts them taking another elective because they're taking that academy foundation course to get that extra support. But our goal is that, like you said, cut the string, that we've had the support there and the kids can see that they can be successful. So we're starting to see that with some of our 10th graders. Hey, I've had encouragement, I've had direction, I've had people work with me. I'm not scared to go see the teacher. I know teachers care. And so I think we've seen some great strides. So hopefully that'll show up in our graduation rate.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have the board values identification, Dr. Funk.
So you have the 3 values that you picked from your exercise a month ago: respect, integrity, compassion, and then you had the one that you added at the end of the exercise. That wasn't in the top 3, but it was, I think it was tied for 4th, was collaboration. So, you know, you've had a month to think about nothing else but these 4 values that you have in front of you, and so any thoughts or not, or Or does the board formally want to go forward and say, you know, these are the board values of Albert Lea area schools, and we can put them out there with our Englishly or grammatically correct mission statement. So anyhow, so just thoughts on the board on what you want to do there.
Well, I just gotta say, I hated that exercise. It was painful, but I think it worked. I really, when we ended up with them, I was like, oh, this worked. Dr. Funk knew what he was talking about.
I wouldn't go that far, but,
See who's laughing over there?
yeah. Your cohorts, I can't believe. I agree with Angie. It worked well. My biggest frustration is there are a whole bunch of other values that we eliminated that I like, you know. There weren't any bad values there. But if we need to narrow it down to 3 or 4, then the process worked.
So the question is, what do we want to do as a board with that? Do we have any suggestions that come from other boards and what they've done with these values?
I think what organizations do is they adopt the values, and then when we're having conversations with people, okay, well, we're respectful about what we do. We represent ourselves with integrity. It's kind of almost a compass that we can use as a district when we're having meetings and leading groups of people, that this is, you know, this is who we are as an organization. We have a mission statement, but we also treat individuals with respect. We have integrity, we're compassionate, and we believe in the value of collaboration.
Well, again, I like the idea of a mission statement, and I think these values suggest a method by which we as a staff should implement our mission. That's how we should approach our mission, with respect and employ these values. It should be connected to our mission.
So I went through one of these exercises a week ago at work, and we put together a purpose statement using the key words again. So are we fine with just leaving the words that are there, or do we want to just maybe have a board purpose statement?
Well, back to the mission. I think our purpose as a board should be to do everything we can to facilitate the mission that our district has embraced. And once again, I think in facilitating that mission, we need to employ these values or approach the facilitation of that mission in a manner which would be consistent with the values that we have adopted. In other words, in encouraging growth in our students, we would do so with respect, with integrity, with compassion, and collaborate. So, now, I don't know how we want to publish this, if in fact we need to publish it, but whatever publication or whatever presentation that we have as regarding our decision to embrace these values, I think it should be connected to our mission statement.
I think often people in businesses get into too many mission statements and all these other things. So if we're fine just refocusing on this periodically, you know, I always carry the school board member code of ethics with me and review it periodically, and I certainly encourage everyone else to do that. But maybe we come back and look at these periodically to make sure we are living up to that, because as a board, we decided that's where we're going and that's what we should follow. So are we fine with just leaving that as the words, or where do we want to go with this?
I would like to see individuals treated with respect, integrity, and compassion, and that we would collaborate. So I believe that we could revisit it at a future time, just use them as guiding thoughts that we can evaluate ourselves in our discussions at any time, and make sure that we're keeping on track with that.
I used to be one who, believe it or not, scoffed at things such as mission statements and the time that was spent on generating them, but I've totally changed my mind about that. I think probably a mission statement is one of the most important things that any institution can have, regardless of what it is, a church, political party, you name it. I think the difficulty with so many institutions is that they forget what they're here for, what their mission is, what their purpose is. And I find it very useful to have a clear, simple statement in front of me so that I can look at it every chance I get, or it's impossible to avoid. It's on every letterhead, you know, on the wall, so that I am constantly reminded to measure my actions against what they should be. And these values present a sort of a vision of what that mission looks like. These are the values that we should incorporate into our approach as we work towards realizing our mission.
Okay, thank you. So we should probably review these periodically and come back to it. Probably send something out. I like to carry things with me, so if we could do that, that would be great.
Do you want to formally make a motion that we accept these 4 values as our values for the Upper Area School Board?
So move.
Is there a second to the motion? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting this as our board values signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but Mark has been disconnected from the conversation.
Okay, next we have our annual review of policies. Mark?
Yep, so we have 2 policies we're reviewing tonight. First one is policy 522, student sexual non-discrimination. This policy, there's just some rewording suggested by the Minnesota School Board Association. So you can see basically in the first page, and then there's a little bit on page 2, mainly dealing with clerical information on page 2. Page 1 is just rewording a little bit to make it more understandable. So that's policy 522. Policy 616, school district system of accountability. The main thing taken out here is no child left behind has been replaced by federal laws. And the new term that we're using, I gotta go back to remember, it's at the very end of the thing, and it talks about, I think it's students succeed, whatever. Every student succeed is the new federal thing. And so then there was just some cleaning up of positions and who reports and when they report in page 4 and 5. And just give some things that we're already following. It's just who's in charge of it and when it happens. Any questions or concerns?
What is the rationale on page 5 of removing F? Has to do with a longitudinal, systematic approach to student education and career planning.
Right. I would suspect that the Minnesota School Board Association didn't think that was necessary anymore based on the other things that we're doing.
It is. I'd have to go back and look at the notes. It does have to do with the changeover from No Child Left Behind to ESSA and our World's Best Workforce report. I can get you more detail on that.
Is there action that we'd like to take on this, on these two policies?
Forgive me, are we to take action on each one of these policies separately? Yes?
Correct.
All right, I move to adopt the policy as presented.
Or one at a time? Okay, so let's do the student sex non-discrimination policy 522 first. Motion's been made. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Any further discussion? All those in approving policy update for student sex non-discrimination 522 signify by saying aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the next one then, policy 616. Is there action that you'd like to take on that one?
I'd like to make a motion to approve that also.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of policy 616, school district system accountability, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to our next item, which is a resolution regarding a quick claim to the title of Austin Albert Lee Area Special Education Cooperative Building. Lori.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Funk, for your consideration is a resolution regarding the special ed co-op building. And as you may recall, Austin Public Schools and Albert Lee Public Schools share the costs of the principal and interest from the renovation of that building 50-50. And so what we're looking at here is addressing the ownership of the building when that debt is fully paid off. And so the intent here was from the beginning is that at the end of the lease payment schedule is that the ownership would go to the Austin Albert Lee Area Special Ed Co-op District. They're their own district. And so what we're going through the measures here is that Austin Public Schools passed the same resolution. That's why the Albert Lee Public Schools is looking at passing this resolution. And then the co-op board will also pass a resolution so that we're all in agreement that the ownership of the building at the end of the debt schedule will revert over to the cooperative.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I think we're all aware of the cooperative.
I'll move that we adopt this resolution as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution to the quick claim title of the Special Education Cooperative Building signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next item is we're looking at going into closed session under Minnesota Statute 13D.03 on labor negotiations. Is there a motion to do so? Is there a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.